The car was far enough away to not be a threat, but close enough for him to realize he was being stalked. Finally, the car arrived. He answers all his questions paralyzed by fear. He tells him to get in the car. Duncan swallows hard and follows his orders. Duncan walked home from work. He walked 7 miles from Ballajou to Benisha through pitch-black streets in 2.15 hours each way. He did that for days. This time was different. Duncan didn't always walk to work. His car broke down and he couldn't afford repairs. Dark mornings and nights controlled him now. Friends and family drove him to work for a while. That had to end. Duncan decided to stop relying on others for work after a few weeks. He couldn't afford car repairs, but he didn't want to burden others. He chose. Until he saved enough for a car, he walked to work every day. Duncan knew home life was complicated. His car broke down 2 or 3 weeks prior. He felt guilty whenever he asked his mother or brother to drive him to work. He didn't want to add to their troubles after the past year. Michael's family was especially stressed. They had other issues but were financially stable. If you like my videos, don't forget to like or subscribe. Thanks in advance. Michael's brother and mom worked full-time, and he worked part-time. They rarely saw each other due to their shifts. Michael's younger brother Curtis had spent a few months in juvenile detention. Fairly, Michael saw it coming. Curtis was stubborn and kept getting involved with the wrong people, despite his mom, older brother, and their best efforts. Dad? Their father was imprisoned. They visited him occasionally and Michael's mom hadn't dated anyone else. They all resented him. He was imprisoned for his reckless and selfish behavior. He would serve 12 more years. Michael knew his mom and brother were busy, so he decided to walk to work until his car was fixed. He took that job to help his family, not to cause more problems. He underestimated something. If only he knew what he was risking. He didn't realize those roads were dangerous. They were often unsupervised. If anything happened to him, nobody might know until it was too late. He adjusted to waking up early and walking home in the dark. Duncan was brave but scared. He was often startled by noises in the dark on his way home. Luckily, possums, squirrels, and rats played. Except this time. Duncan would encounter a terrifying situation. He daydreamed about bed with 1 hour left. The walk exhausted him after a long day at work. He stretched his arms skyward and yawned. He saw his shadow. He moved farther from the road expecting a car to pass, but something was wrong. His shadow never changed size. He looked back, confused. He saw bright car headlights in the darkness. It appeared stationary. What happened? Michael squinted to see the driver behind the windshield but saw nothing. Duncan considered approaching the driver while standing there. Is something wrong? He realized he should stay out of it. It might be a trap. He turned and walked. He understood. The car moved. It was following Duncan, just far enough behind to not be a threat but close enough to make him realize someone was driving. Was he stalked? Why? Who? He told himself he might be hallucinating. Duncan had never experienced paranoia or irrational fears, but this time was different. He was alone on the road at night, miles from home, with 1 car following him. Duncan's fear was justified. He walked without looking back. Maybe they were waiting for him to stop so they could jump on him easier. The engine's low, menacing roar kept his heart racing as the car moved slowly behind him. Suddenly, he realized something. Screaming would be inaudible on the empty road. If the driver pursued him, the car would catch him no matter how fast he ran. He couldn't escape the nightmare-like situation. Duncan chose one option. Turning, he accelerated. Headlights enlarged his shadow. The car slowly approached him. He pretended not to see it until the car shouted. He froze as his heart raced at the man. Police. Duncan's mind raced and his forehead sweated as the officer ordered him to stop walking and started asking questions. Did he feel guilty? He looked suspicious walking this empty road at night. Another possibility existed. Could his father or little brother be involved? Duncan became anxious. How could police recognize him? Were they monitoring him? Duncan felt sick at the thought. What did his brother and father tell police? Could they do that? The policeman inquired about his name, address, and activities. Duncan replied and asked if anything was wrong, but no one responded. The officer ordered him into the car after he answered his questions. His weapon rests comfortably in his stern hand. Duncan swallowed and obeyed. The officer offered a ride home. He couldn't refuse due to nerves. He would have done anything the officer ordered. He talked non-stop to show the officer he was friendly and normal. He may have told the officer too much. By the time he got home, the cop knew everything about him, his friends, where he lived, and worked. This cop knew everything. Duncan realized he had talked too much. The officer dropped him off at his mom's house and let him go without any ulterior motives. Duncan returned to his long commute the following day. Last night's encounter made him laugh at his fear. How ridiculous, he thought, I've watched too many movies. Duncan thought the strange encounter was a friendly cop, but there was much more to the story. He awaited his arrival at work. He stood with his weapon on his hip and his feet planted. Duncan was his focus. Duncan panicked at this unwelcoming sight. Why's he here? Duncan? He was innocent. Duncan approached him with confidence. Kirk Keffer, a police officer, heard Duncan's story that night. He had to help. Drive. Effort. That's huge. Keffer said, not that many 18-year-olds you meet have that kind of mindset. They don't want to walk to the store, let alone 7 miles to work. Duncan gave Keffer his number after telling him he had graduated high school and wanted to become a police officer after college. Keffer surprised Duncan by contacting him again. He brought a new bike to Duncan's work. More. He promoted Duncan's dedication and started a GoFundMe for college. He raised $40,000. Duncan couldn't believe this policeman helped him. Totally shocked. He never expected a cop to recognize or reward him. From then on, Keffer checked in on Duncan's health and spending habits. Duncan bought a new car for his commute and put the rest toward college. GoFundMe recipient deserving. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again in the next video.